Tonight, we pull back the curtain on a force unlike any other, a hidden army that does not serve a nation, a people, or even a flag, but one man sitting on one throne. For centuries, the Vatican's Swiss Guard have stood in silence, brightly dressed, smiling for the tourists. But behind their colourful uniforms lies a mystery far deeper than ceremony. This is not just about soldiers with halberds standing at gates. It is about an army bound by secrecy, by loyalty written in blood, guarding more than the Pope's life. Whispers speak of sealed archives, forbidden missions, and truths so powerful that their very release could shake the world. They are the watchers in the shadows, the gatekeepers of prophecy, the guardians of history humanity was never meant to see. So, before you dismiss them as mere symbols in Renaissance costumes, ask yourself, what if they are not only protecting the Pope, but controlling what the world is allowed to know? Like the video, subscribe, because tonight we uncover the Pope's mysterious Swiss Guard, and some secrets do not wear armor, they wear silence. They stand in silence, dressed in colors so bright they almost look like they walked out of a painting. Red, blue, and yellow stripes cover their bodies, tall plumed helmets gleam under the Roman sun, and heavy halberds rest in their hands like relics from another age. Tourists snap photos, children point and laugh, and yet none of them stop to ask the most important question. Who are these men really? They are called the Pope's Swiss Guard, and while they may look like a medieval costume show, they are something far more unsettling. They are the hidden army of the Vatican, a force that has stood in the shadows for over 500 years, loyal not to a nation, not to a flag, but to a single man, the Pope. And behind their silence lies a history filled with blood, secrets, and mysteries the world has never been allowed to fully understand. Every day in Vatican City, thousands of people pass through the gates of St. Peter's Square. They see the massive basilica, the holy statues, the marble columns that seem to touch the sky. But just as striking are the guards at the entrance, standing perfectly still, watching everything with eyes that never seem to blink. Unlike soldiers of any other country, these men are foreigners. They are Swiss by birth, bound by oath, and chosen to guard not just the Pope's life, but something even greater, something the Vatican will never admit out loud. For centuries, the image of the Swiss Guard has been a paradox. On the outside, they look ceremonial, colourful, almost harmless, like a living decoration in the smallest country in the world. Yet in the hidden corridors of the Vatican, these same men train with modern weapons, rehearse secret drills, and stand ready to act as the Pope's last line of defence. They are not just guards. They are shadows who listen without speaking, who act without question, and who disappear into the background just as quickly as they appear. Their silence is not accidental. Every man who swears the oath is bound to secrecy, forbidden from ever revealing what he has seen inside those walls. And that silence is what makes them dangerous. Because in a world filled with rumours of hidden archives, forbidden manuscripts, and secrets buried deep under Vatican stone, someone must stand watch to make sure nothing ever escapes. The Swiss Guard is that someone. Look at them long enough, and you realise their uniforms are not just fabric. They are symbols. They hide more than they show. Their halberds may look medieval, but behind closed doors, they carry pistols, rifles, and weapons of the modern age. The cheerful colours might remind you of a festival, but their eyes remind you of a prison guard. They smile for cameras when ordered. But behind that smile is a loyalty carved so deep it erases everything else. Who are they really? That is the question no one dares to answer. To the world, they are tradition. To the Vatican, they are survival. To history, they are a mystery that has endured for more than 500 years. And as long as they stand in silence, brightly dressed and watchful, the truth about them will remain locked away, just like the secrets they guard. Most armies march under flags. They fight for kings, for presidents, for borders drawn on maps. But there is one army in the world that exists for none of those things. The Swiss Guard serves only one master, and that master is not a nation, not a government, not even a people. Their loyalty is to one man, the Pope. From the very moment a new recruit swears the oath, his life ceases to belong to himself. He does not fight for Switzerland, the country of his birth. He does not fight for Italy, the land where he now stands. He does not even fight for the Church as an institution. His sword, his blood, his breath are bound to the living Pope seated on the throne of St. Peter. This loyalty is personal, immediate, and absolute. It is unlike anything else in the modern world. Imagine it. A soldier trained, armed, and sworn, not to defend a flag that will outlast leaders, but to guard the body of a single man. If the Pope falls, so too does the mission of the Guard. That strange devotion has shaped the Swiss Guard into something halfway between an army and a secret order, as much about faith as it is about discipline. Every order they obey comes down not from a general in some distant office, but from the figure in white who walks through St. Peter's Square. To them, his life is more valuable than their own. Throughout history, this bond has been tested again and again. In times of chaos, when empires collapsed and kings were betrayed, the Swiss Guard stood unbroken, not because of politics, but because their oath bound them tighter than iron chains. When Rome itself fell into flames during the sack of 1527, the Guard did not hesitate. They fought to the last man around Pope Clement VII, buying him enough time to escape while nearly all of them were cut down. That moment became legend, and from it their loyalty was etched into memory forever. Even today, in an age of cameras and tourists, this vow has not weakened. A guard who falters is expelled. A guard who betrays is erased from history. No country can claim them. No general can command them. They live in a small barracks hidden behind Vatican walls, their lives revolving around the movements of a single man. If he travels, they travel. If he sleeps, they stand watch. If he dies, they carry him to his grave. This is why the Swiss Guard is unlike any military force on earth. Their loyalty is not abstract. It is flesh and blood. It is the Pope himself. And in that loyalty lies both beauty and danger, because when an entire army serves only one man, it raises a haunting question. Who truly holds the power? The Pope, or the silent men who have sworn to never let him go? It seems almost absurd when you think about it. The Pope, the most powerful man in Christendom, surrounded not by Romans, not by Italians, but by a handful of men from the distant mountains of Switzerland. Why would the Vatican place its survival in the hands of foreigners? Why trust mercenaries from another land instead of loyal sons of Italy? The answer is buried in the blood-stained soil of medieval Europe. During the late Middle Ages, the Swiss had earned a reputation unlike any other. They were not kings, they were not nobles, they were farmers, men of the mountains, hardened by harsh winters and constant struggles. But on the battlefield, they became legends. Swiss mercenaries carried long pikes and halberds, and fought in tight, disciplined squares that could crush even the most powerful cavalry. In battle after battle across Europe, they defeated armies larger and richer than their own. By the end of the 15th century, everyone feared the Swiss. They were considered the finest soldiers money could buy. Pope Julius II understood this better than anyone. Rome was not safe. The Papal States were surrounded by rival powers, and Italy was a patchwork of warring city-states where betrayal was as common as bread. Italian soldiers could not be trusted. Roman mercenaries could be bought by the highest bidder. But the Swiss had something different. They had a reputation for loyalty to their contracts and a brutal honesty in war. If you paid them, they fought to the death, and once they swore an oath, they would rather die than break it. So in the year 1506, Julius invited 150 Swiss mercenaries into Rome. They marched across the Alps, carrying their halberds, entered the Vatican, and became the personal guards of the Pope. That decision changed history. From that moment on, the papacy was tied not to the loyalty of Italians who could betray, but to the fierce devotion of foreigners, whose only master was the one they swore to serve. But there was another reason the Vatican chose outsiders. A pope must be above politics. If his army came from Rome, he would be seen as a Roman leader. If his guards were Italian, rival Italian families could influence them. By choosing Swiss mercenaries, the Pope placed himself under the protection of men who had no stake in Italian power struggles. Their only allegiance was to him, not to any family, not to any city, not to any king. Over time, what began as a mercenary contract became something deeper. The Swiss Guard transformed from hired soldiers into a brotherhood tied by tradition, by faith, and by blood spilled in Rome's defence. They were no longer just foreigners, they became a permanent fixture, a living symbol of loyalty from outside Italy, and that is why to this day, when you walk through the Vatican, you will not find Roman soldiers guarding the Pope. You will find Swiss men, brightly dressed, but carrying a legacy of steel, a reminder that survival sometimes requires trusting those far from home. The year was 1506, and Rome was not a safe place. The city that had once ruled the known world was now fractured, surrounded by rival powers, and threatened by warlords and kings who saw the Pope not as a holy figure, but as a pawn in their endless struggle for control. Sitting on the throne of St. Peter was Julius II, a pope known as the Warrior Pope, a man who believed the papacy should not only guide souls, but command armies. He knew that if the Vatican was to survive, he needed protectors unlike any others. Julius looked north, across the snow-covered Alps, to the rugged valleys of Switzerland. There he found the men who had earned a reputation across Europe as the fiercest mercenaries alive. They were farmers in peace, but on the battlefield they became a wall of steel, armed with long pikes and halberds, able to resist even the most feared cavalry. These were not noble knights bound by fragile honour. They were mountain men, hardened by hunger, cold, and endless fighting. To Julius, they were perfect, loyal to their pay, bound by oath, and feared by all. So he summoned them. 150 Swiss mercenaries marched south, crossing the Alps in the bitter winter, their boots crunching on the ice, their halberds gleaming under the pale sun. When they reached the Eternal City, they were not welcomed as strangers but as saviours. On January 22nd, 1506, they entered Rome through the Porta del Popolo, their colourful banners fluttering in the wind. The people watched as these men, so different from Roman soldiers, marched straight into the Vatican and placed themselves at the service of the Pope. That day marked the birth of the Pontifical Swiss Guard. Julius did not want a symbolic guard to decorate ceremonies. He wanted warriors who would fight to the last man if needed. He looked at them and declared that they were to be the Pope's personal protectors, the chosen shield of the Vatican. From then on, their loyalty was not to Switzerland, not to Rome, but directly to him. Their presence alone sent a message to the rival powers of Europe. The Pope was no longer an easy target. His halls were now defended by men who had no ties to Italian politics, men who could not be bribed by powerful families, men who had no allegiance except to the man in white. It was a clever move by Julius. He knew that politics could betray him, but steel and discipline would not. In the centuries that followed, their numbers would rise and fall, their uniforms would change, but the memory of that first day never faded. 150 men stepping into the Vatican, ready to die for a pope they had barely met. The world did not yet realize it, but on that cold January morning, a force had been born that would outlast kings, empires, and centuries of war. The Pope had found his hidden army, and the Swiss Guard would never leave his side. When people today see the Swiss Guard standing in their striped uniforms with halberds in hand, it is easy to think they are only a ceremonial decoration, a tradition kept alive for the sake of tourists and photographs. But in the early 16th century, they were nothing less than the Pope's private army. At a time when Italy was divided into warring city-states and Europe was a battlefield of kings and emperors, the Vatican could not survive on prayer alone. It needed steel. It needed men who would fight and die without hesitation. That was the Swiss Guard. Pope Julius II did not hire them to pose at the gates of St. Peter's. He brought them into Rome because he knew the papacy was under constant threat. The Papal States were surrounded by rivals, and the French, the Spanish, and the Holy Roman Empire all saw the Pope's lands as ripe for the taking. Even within Italy, powerful families and mercenary armies schemed to control Rome. Without protection, the Pope was just another prize in the great game of power. But with the Swiss Guard at his side, he had warriors who would form a wall of flesh and steel around him, a shield against any blade. These men were trained for battle, not ceremony. They drilled in tight squares, halberds braced, pikes levelled, able to hold their ground against charging cavalry. Their discipline was legendary, their loyalty unshakable once an oath was sworn. Other mercenaries could be bought or bribed, but the Swiss had built their reputation on keeping their word. That is why Julius trusted them. They were not just soldiers, they were living insurance that the Pope would not fall victim to the chaos outside his gates. The Guard quickly became more than just protection for one man. They defended the Vatican itself. They patrolled the walls, guarded the treasures of the Church, and escorted the Pope on his journeys. In those turbulent years, when alliances shifted overnight and armies marched across Italy without warning, the Swiss Guard stood as the one constant. To attack the Pope meant to face them, and everyone knew that facing them meant certain death. Their role as a private army also gave the papacy something it had never truly had before: independence. Without them, the Pope would have to rely on Italian nobles or foreign kings for safety, making him a puppet to their demands. With them, he could stand apart. His survival no longer depended on favours from powerful neighbours. It rested on the shoulders of men who asked for nothing except their pay and the honour of serving. Over time, their image might have softened into the bright uniforms we see today, but the truth remains unchanged. The Swiss Guard began as the Vatican's shield, not a parade unit. They were forged in a time of danger and blood, and their presence was a reminder that even the Pope, the most spiritual leader in Europe, could not survive without an army at his side. They were his hidden sword, his silent fortress, his private army in a world that respected only power. The morning of May 6th in the year 1527 began with fire and screams. Rome, the eternal city, was under siege, not by a foreign empire, but by the very soldiers who once swore loyalty to the Holy Roman Emperor. Starving, unpaid, and filled with rage, tens of thousands of troops stormed the walls, breaking into streets that had once echoed with prayers. What followed would be remembered as the sack of Rome, one of the darkest days in the history of the Church, and the moment when the Swiss Guard carved their legend into stone. Inside the Vatican, Pope Clement VII faced the impossible. The walls could not hold. The city gates had been breached. Soldiers flooded through, looting, burning, and killing without mercy. The Pope, dressed in white robes, was suddenly the most hunted man in the city. If captured, he would become a prisoner of the empire. If killed, it would send shockwaves through all of Christendom. The fate of the Church rested on the shoulders of fewer than 200 men, the Swiss Guard. There were 189 of them that day. They knew they were outnumbered, facing an army of tens of thousands. They knew their halberds and swords were no match for cannons and muskets. And yet they chose not to flee. They formed their line on the steps of St. Peter's Basilica, the great church behind them, the Pope's life in their hands. What happened next was not a battle. It was a massacre. Wave after wave of soldiers crashed against them. The Guard fought with desperate fury, halberds cutting through armour, pikes braced against charging men. The square was painted red with their blood. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. For every man who fell, another closed ranks. By the time the fighting ended, 147 of the Swiss Guard lay dead. Their bodies formed a wall of silence around the steps of the basilica, a shield made of flesh and loyalty. While they held the enemy at bay, a small group of surviving guards escorted Pope Clement through a secret passage known as the Passetto di Borgo. It was a narrow, elevated corridor that connected the Vatican to the fortress of Castel Sant'Angelo. As Rome burned and their brothers fell, these few men ensured the Pope escaped alive. Clement would live, but the cost was almost total annihilation of the Guard. The sack of Rome was a disaster for the city, but it became the defining moment of the Swiss Guard. Their sacrifice transformed them from mercenaries into legends. They were no longer just the Pope's soldiers. They became martyrs of loyalty, men who had proven with their blood that their oath was stronger than death itself. To this day, every May 6th, new recruits of the Swiss Guard swear their oath in remembrance of that battle. They stand in the same square where their ancestors fell and pledge the same words of loyalty. The world may forget many battles, but the stand of 189 men against an army has never been erased. It remains the soul of the Guard, a story whispered in silence, proof that even in the face of impossible odds, loyalty can outlast death. Bright stripes of red, blue, and yellow ripple in the Roman sun as the Swiss Guard stand motionless at their posts. To the casual eye, their uniform looks almost theatrical, like something out of a Renaissance festival. Some believe it was designed by Michelangelo himself, though historians argue it was actually created in the early 20th century, inspired by Renaissance patterns. But beneath the dazzling fabric lies a mystery. Are these uniforms merely costumes meant to impress tourists? Or is there a hidden meaning woven into their colours and design? Every part of the Swiss Guard uniform is deliberate. The plumed helmet with its ostrich feathers recalls the pageantry of old Italian armies. The doublet and puffed sleeves echo the Renaissance nobility that once filled the palaces of Rome. Yet the colours are what draw the most attention. Red for blood and sacrifice, blue for loyalty and heaven, yellow for the papacy and its golden crown. Together, they form the colours of the powerful Medici family, a dynasty that gave the world several popes and ruled Florence with cunning. When the Swiss Guard wear these colours, are they honouring tradition, or are they carrying the secret symbols of political alliances long forgotten? There is also the question of intimidation. In the 16th century, soldiers dressed to frighten as much as to fight. The bold stripes of the Guard made them stand out on the battlefield, announcing their presence like a warning flag. To an enemy, seeing a wall of brightly clad Swiss pikemen must have been both strange and terrifying, a reminder that these were not ordinary soldiers, but chosen men willing to die where they stood. Even today, the uniform draws the gaze of every visitor, distracting from the modern weapons hidden beneath cloaks or inside barracks. The uniform is both a mask and a statement. Some scholars whisper that the uniform carries layers of secret meaning. They point to patterns resembling Masonic geometry, ratios inspired by Renaissance architecture, and colours that match alchemical symbols for fire, air, and gold. Could it be that the Guard, while appearing as colourful relics, also bear the marks of older orders, carrying codes understood only by those initiated into hidden traditions? Officially, the Vatican dismisses such claims as fanciful, but secrecy has always been its language. What is undeniable is that the uniform is not just about appearance. It is a reminder of sacrifice, particularly the blood spilled in 1527 when the Guard died defending Pope Clement. The red stripe is not fashion, it is memory. The blue stripe is not decoration, it is faith. The yellow stripe is not vanity, it is authority. Together, they weave a silent oath into cloth, telling every Guard who puts it on that he now carries 5 centuries of duty on his shoulders. So the next time you see them standing still, halberds gleaming, colours shining like stained glass, remember, their uniforms are not costumes, they are codes, they are warnings. They are history stitched into fabric, a mystery that speaks without words, and a reminder that the Swiss Guard is not there for show. They are there to protect secrets, too old and too dangerous to be left unguarded. Each year, on the 6th of May, in the courtyard of the Vatican, a strange and solemn ceremony takes place. New recruits of the Swiss Guard gather before the Pope, dressed in their brilliant uniforms, holding their halberds high. One by one, they step forward, raise 3 fingers of their right hand, and swear an oath that has remained unchanged for centuries. But unlike other soldiers, their vow is not to a country, not to a flag, and not even directly to God. It is to one man, the Pope himself. The words of the oath are chilling in their clarity. They promise to sacrifice their lives if necessary, to remain loyal until death, and to obey the Pope and his successors with absolute devotion. This is not symbolic language. History has already proven that the Swiss Guard will fight to the last breath if called to. The sack of Rome in 1527 is the living example. 147 men gave their lives to protect Pope Clement, and their blood sealed the oath forever. Every recruit who repeats those words knows exactly what it means. The act of raising 3 fingers is itself heavy with meaning. They represent the Holy Trinity, a reminder that their service is blessed by faith, but at the same time, the gesture binds them to a human being seated on the throne of St. Peter. It is this mixture of divine and earthly authority that makes the oath so powerful. For a Swiss Guard, loyalty to the Pope outranks loyalty to family, to nation, even to their own survival. Once sworn, the oath becomes a chain that cannot be broken without dishonor. What makes this vow even more mysterious is the secrecy around its enforcement. Former guards have spoken about the brotherhood and discipline of their service, but many aspects of their oath remain off limits. What happens if a guard breaks his word? What punishment awaits a man who refuses to obey? Such questions are rarely answered, and silence surrounds those who leave the service. The oath binds not only their time in uniform, but also what they carry with them afterward. This ritual, repeated every May, is more than tradition. It is a reenactment of sacrifice. It reminds the Vatican and the world that the Guard is not there for show. They are a living wall of loyalty whose existence depends on their willingness to give up their lives for one man. To stand in the courtyard and watch the ceremony is to witness something that feels both sacred and unsettling, an unbroken chain linking the present to centuries of blood and devotion. In a world where soldiers usually serve nations, the Swiss Guard stands alone. Their oath makes them both unique and mysterious. They are bound not by borders but by a person. They are the Pope's men, body and soul, sworn with life and blood, and in their silence lies a reminder that the deepest loyalties are the ones history rarely questions, but always fears. At first glance, the Swiss Guard seem frozen in time. They stand outside the Vatican's gates with halberds in their hands, weapons that look like they belong in a museum more than on the streets of Rome. Tourists see them and assume they are simply actors in costume, there to give colour to the Vatican's image. But step beyond the public eye, behind the guarded doors, and into the hidden barracks, and the picture changes. The same men who pose with halberds train daily with pistols, assault rifles, and submachine guns. The Guard lives with 2 faces, one ancient and ceremonial, the other modern and lethal. Why? The halberd is not just a weapon. It is a symbol, an echo of the Guard's origins in the early 16th century, when Swiss mercenaries were feared across Europe for their mastery of pike and polearm warfare. To see a Guard standing silently with one is to be reminded of their legendary stand during the sack of Rome in 1527, when they fought to the death on the steps of St. Peter's Basilica. The halberd represents continuity, loyalty, and tradition. It tells the world that these men are bound to history, but tradition alone cannot stop a bullet. Hidden from tourists, the Guard's armoury holds the same weapons carried by elite forces around the world: Glock pistols, Sig Sauer rifles, Heckler and Koch submachine guns. Their training involves modern tactics, close quarters battle, and even anti-terrorism drills. Few people realize it, but the Swiss Guard are fully capable of operating as a modern security force. Their role is not only to protect the Pope in public ceremonies, but to respond instantly if an attack were ever launched within Vatican walls. The halberds may reassure tradition, but the rifles reassure survival. This dual face serves the Vatican in more ways than one. The halberds maintain the sacred image, projecting stability and reminding visitors of centuries of loyalty. They are part of the performance, part of the illusion of timelessness that surrounds the papacy. But the modern weapons, kept discreetly out of sight, ensure that the Pope is never truly defenseless. In a world of terrorism, assassinations, and political unrest, symbolism is not enough. Steel must be balanced by firepower. The mixture also creates mystery. Few people have ever seen the Guard fully armed, moving in coordinated squads with weapons ready. Those who have described them as silent professionals, efficient and deadly. It is a side of the Swiss Guard the Vatican prefers to keep hidden, for the more the world sees them as harmless ceremonial figures, the easier it is to mask their true capacity. And perhaps that is the point. To the outside world, the Pope appears to be watched over by colourful guards carrying medieval weapons, but in reality, an invisible layer of protection surrounds him, one that does not hesitate to fire if needed. The halberd and the rifle tell two different stories. One is about the past, about sacrifice and tradition. The other is about the present, about danger and survival. Together they create a paradox, a guard force that is both relic and modern army. And in that paradox lies the truth of the Swiss Guard. They are guardians of history, but also soldiers of today, their weapons reminding us that in the Vatican nothing is ever only what it seems. Not just anyone can wear the colours of the Swiss Guard. For more than 500 years, the Vatican has enforced some of the strictest requirements of any military in the world. To stand in those striped uniforms, a man must be Swiss, Catholic, unmarried, and absolutely loyal. On the surface, these rules might seem outdated, even strange, but each one hides a deeper purpose, crafted to protect not only the Pope, but also the secrecy of the Vatican itself. The first requirement is nationality. A recruit must be born in Switzerland, a country known for neutrality, independence, and discipline. This rule stretches back to the very beginning, when Pope Julius II summoned mercenaries from the Swiss cantons in the year 1506. Their reputation for loyalty and fearlessness was unmatched. By keeping the Guards strictly Swiss, the Vatican preserves that legacy. It ensures that no Italian family, no European power, no political faction inside Rome can plant their own influence within the Pope's most trusted circle. Outsiders may be able to enter the Vatican, but only the Swiss Guard are allowed to stand at its heart. The second rule is faith. Every recruit must be Roman Catholic, and not just in name. They must be practicing members of the Church. This rule binds them spiritually to the Pope, ensuring their service is not only professional, but sacred. To them, protecting the Pope is more than duty, it is a calling. It is a way of defending the Vicar of Christ on earth. Loyalty, born from faith, is harder to break than loyalty born from money, and the Vatican knows this. The third rule is about marriage. Recruits must be single when they join. Only after several years of service can some of them request permission to marry, and even then it is tightly controlled. Why such strictness? Because a soldier with a family may be distracted, divided between his duty to the Pope and his duty to his wife and children. The Vatican cannot allow such division. A guard must belong fully to his oath until he has proven himself worthy of balancing both roles. The final rule is perhaps the most important: absolute loyalty. Once the oath is spoken, a guard's life no longer belongs to himself, it belongs to the Pope. This loyalty is tested in silence, in obedience, and in sacrifice. It is not unusual for recruits to face intense background checks, psychological evaluations, and character screenings before they are accepted. The Vatican does not want strong men alone. It wants men who can be trusted with secrets, men who will never speak of what they have seen inside its walls. Together, these rules create a filter so narrow that only a handful of men qualify each year. They are called the chosen few because they truly are rare, hand-picked from the mountains of Switzerland to stand watch in the smallest country in the world, yet perhaps the most mysterious. Behind their bright uniforms is a reminder that sometimes the strongest armies are not the largest, but the most carefully chosen. And in the case of the Swiss Guard, the narrowness of their requirements is exactly what has allowed them to endure for centuries without breaking. Most armies check if a recruit can fight, if he is healthy, and if he can follow orders. But the Vatican is no ordinary power, and the Swiss Guard is no ordinary army. Behind the bright colours and ceremonial smiles lies a recruitment process that feels more like an investigation than an application. Officially, the Guard requires its men to be Swiss, Catholic, and disciplined. But whispers tell of something deeper, something hidden. Rumours suggest that every potential recruit is carefully studied, not just as a soldier, but as a person, as a family member, and even as a mind. Stories have surfaced of background checks that stretch back generations. Families of recruits are said to be quietly examined, their histories picked apart for signs of scandal, political leanings, or anything that might make the Vatican uneasy. A man may be strong and loyal, but if his family has ties to questionable groups, if his bloodline carries a shadow, he might be rejected before he even knows why. For the Vatican, the Guard is not just about strength, it is about trust, and trust requires certainty that runs deeper than muscle or courage. Then there are the whispers of psychological vetting. Some say recruits are tested in ways that are never publicly acknowledged. Their patience is observed, their ability to remain silent under pressure measured, their reactions in stressful situations quietly judged. The Vatican, with centuries of experience in controlling minds and guarding secrets, knows the danger of a man who talks too much or thinks too freely. A single slip of the tongue could reveal what is meant to remain hidden. A single weakness could compromise not just the Pope, but the Vatican's most guarded mysteries. Former guards rarely speak of these tests, but their silence itself adds weight to the rumours. Those who leave service often describe their years as transformative, almost as if they were shaped to become something more than soldiers. To some, it feels like indoctrination, a quiet remoulding of the mind so that obedience becomes second nature and secrecy becomes a reflex. The Vatican does not need men who will merely follow orders. It needs men who will bury what they know so deeply that even in death it will never escape. Why would such hidden vetting exist? Perhaps because the Swiss Guard are more than bodyguards. They are allowed into the Pope's private chambers. They escort him in public, and in secret, they patrol areas of the Vatican where outsiders never set foot. In doing so, they may witness things the world has never been meant to see. To guard the Pope is to guard his mysteries, and that requires a kind of silence that must be built into the very bones of the men who serve. Officially, none of this is admitted. The Vatican presents the Guard as disciplined but ordinary soldiers chosen for their heritage and faith. Yet the shadows around their recruitment tell another story, one where men are not simply accepted but sculpted, shaped, and filtered until only the most loyal, the most silent, and the most controlled remain. And that secrecy, more than the uniforms or the weapons, is what makes the Swiss Guard not just a military unit, but a mystery. Behind the walls of the Vatican, hidden from the endless stream of pilgrims and tourists, lies a world few outsiders ever glimpse. It is the barracks of the Swiss Guard, a closed community where life follows rhythms centuries old. To most people, the Guard are statues in bright uniforms, standing silently at the gates or marching during ceremonies. But once they step out of the public eye, they return to a life as private and guarded as the secrets of the Vatican itself. The barracks are modest compared to the grandeur of St. Peter's Basilica or the Apostolic Palace. Simple stone corridors, narrow staircases, and shared dormitories make up the living quarters. Guards sleep in small rooms, often 2 or 3 to a space, their beds lined neatly against the walls, their uniforms pressed and waiting. Privacy is scarce. Everything is shared, from meals to schedules, and in that closeness, a strange brotherhood is forged. These men live not only as soldiers, but as monks of discipline, bound by duty and tradition. Life inside is highly structured. Each day begins with routine, inspections, and drills. Guards rotate between public duties and private security tasks. Some stand for hours in the burning sun or the cold night, while others patrol inner hallways or guard the Pope's chambers. Meals are taken together in the mess hall, where Swiss dishes blend with Italian food, a small reminder of the homeland they left behind. Laughter does exist here, but it is muted, shaped by the knowledge that every man is under constant watch, bound by the oath of silence. There is also training, more intense than most imagine. Beyond the halberds and ceremonial marches, the Guard practice with modern weapons in hidden facilities, learning to respond to any threat that might endanger the Pope. They train their bodies through exercise, but they also train their minds, practicing alertness, awareness, and self-control. Even in the barracks, relaxation is never complete. At any moment, they may be called to duty, summoned to stand between the Pope and danger. Yet, there are softer aspects of life as well. The barracks has its own chapel where guards gather for prayer, reinforcing the spiritual core of their mission. Some guards play music, some study, some write letters home. Friendships are formed in the long hours of duty and the shared strain of service. For those allowed to marry after years of commitment, small apartments are offered within Vatican walls, creating a tiny, hidden community of families few ever know exist. But the most striking part of barracks life is its secrecy. Outsiders rarely enter. Journalists are almost never allowed. Photos are limited and controlled. The guards' daily life is meant to remain invisible, just as their deeper duties are never openly discussed. To serve in the barracks is to live between two worlds, the public stage of the Vatican and the hidden chambers where history moves in silence. For the men who live there, the barracks is more than a place to sleep. It is both prison and sanctuary, a place where their identities as ordinary men fade and their roles as guardians sharpen. It is a world outsiders may never fully understand, a closed realm inside the world's smallest country, where loyalty, secrecy, and sacrifice are woven into every moment of life. When a man leaves the Swiss Guard, he does not simply walk away and return to ordinary life. He carries something invisible with him, something as binding as the colourful uniform he once wore. It is silence. Every guard is sworn not only to protect the Pope, but to keep secrets about the duties he performed within the Vatican walls. This vow of silence follows him long after his service ends, shaping his life in ways outsiders can only guess. Why such secrecy? The answer lies in the strange dual nature of the Guard. To the public, they are ceremonial soldiers, protectors of the Pope's physical safety. But behind closed doors, their duties are far more complex. They patrol private chambers, stand watch in forbidden corridors, and sometimes even accompany the Pope during confidential meetings and travels. In those moments, they may overhear conversations, witness rituals, or glimpse documents never meant for the outside world. Allowing former guards to freely share such experiences would risk exposing the Vatican's most carefully guarded mysteries. The rules are clear. Guards are forbidden from speaking about certain assignments, certain locations, and certain actions. Even interviews with former members are carefully managed, with many refusing to answer questions directly. Some hint at the pressures of silence, describing the difficulty of returning home and being unable to explain what they had truly done in Rome. Others dodge questions altogether, choosing loyalty over honesty. The effect is eerie. An organization famous for bright colors and public ceremonies hides an inner life that remains almost entirely unspoken. There are whispers of more. Some suggest that guards may be present during private papal decisions, even those involving sensitive political or financial matters. Others believe they have access to hidden tunnels, secret archives, and restricted vaults deep under the Vatican. Whether or not these claims are true, the vow of silence ensures the world may never know. What is certain is that the Vatican takes secrecy as seriously as security. For them, silence is another form of protection, a weapon as effective as any halberd or rifle. This silence also adds to the myth of the Guard. By refusing to reveal details, they create an aura of mystery that feeds speculation. Outsiders imagine conspiracies, hidden rituals, and forbidden knowledge lurking in the shadows. Perhaps this is intentional. The less the world knows, the more it wonders. And the more it wonders, the stronger the Vatican's veil of secrecy becomes. For the guards themselves, this oath can be both a burden and a badge of honor. To remain silent is to prove that their loyalty does not end with their service. It continues for life. Every unspoken word is a reminder of the bond they once swore with blood. But it also means they carry memories that can never be shared, stories that will die with them, locked away like the treasures beneath the Vatican. The Swiss Guard are sworn to protect, but they are also sworn to silence. And in that silence lies the Vatican's greatest defense. For as long as the guards refuse to speak, the mysteries they have witnessed remain hidden, shielded by loyalty stronger than steel, and by a vow that no man has ever dared to break. To the outside world, the Swiss Guard are little more than colourful sentries standing watch in Renaissance uniforms. They are photographed, admired, and mistaken for little more than living symbols of history. But those who look closer know the truth. The Guard's real work begins where the tourists cannot see. Beyond the courtyards and ceremonies, they are entrusted with missions that stretch far beyond guarding doors. They protect the Pope's secrets, safeguard the Vatican's hidden archives, and sometimes carry out operations so discreet that most Catholics will never even hear of them. The Vatican is not just a church, it is also a state with centuries of political power woven into its walls. Its archives contain documents that could shake the foundations of history, from letters of emperors to records of secret trials. To reach those archives is nearly impossible without crossing the gaze of the Swiss Guard. They are the first and last barrier, ensuring that no one without permission lays eyes on what lies beneath. Guards have been known to patrol the underground passages, standing sentinel outside locked doors where manuscripts older than nations are kept. The archives may be sealed by locks and laws, but they are defended by flesh and blood men who will not hesitate to act. There are also whispers of duties that never appear in official statements. Former guards have hinted at missions involving confidential escorts, transporting sensitive materials, and guarding meetings between powerful figures conducted away from cameras and reporters. The Pope, despite being a spiritual leader, is also a political figure, and politics attracts shadows. Some believe the Guard are occasionally deployed outside the Vatican, blending into civilian clothes, ensuring that information or individuals make it to their destinations safely. These claims are never confirmed, but their persistence suggests there may be more truth than imagination behind them. Even within the Vatican walls, the Guard's presence is not purely ceremonial. They guard not only the Pope's residence, but also secret chambers, treasuries, and meeting halls. At night, when the tourists are gone, their patrols are the only movement in the silent corridors. They are watchers of both the visible and the invisible, protectors of faith and of secrets too dangerous to fall into the wrong hands. Some go so far as to suggest that the Guard's silence and discipline make them ideal for tasks the Vatican cannot acknowledge publicly. Investigations, discreet surveillance, perhaps even protecting the Church from threats it would never admit exist. No one knows for certain, and perhaps that is the point. By keeping their true role in the shadows, the Swiss Guard ensures that mystery itself becomes their greatest weapon. So while the world sees halberds and plumes, the real guard operates in silence, carrying out duties hidden behind locked doors and beneath marble floors. They are more than bodyguards. They are custodians of secrets, defenders of archives, and sentinels of operations no outsider is meant to know. In their silence, in their unseen missions, they embody the very thing the Vatican has always thrived on. Power protected not by visibility, but by mystery. The world sees the Swiss Guard as loyal protectors who would give their lives for the Pope, and that much is true. But their role has always carried another dimension, one that is rarely spoken of. They are not only guardians standing against outside threats, they are also watchers of the Pope himself. In silence, in shadows, and in absolute discretion, they observe his movements, his habits, even his vulnerabilities. To protect him fully, they must know him completely, and sometimes that knowledge places them closer to his private life than anyone else. The Pope is the most visible religious leader in the world, but he is also one of the most exposed. Every appearance carries risk. Every handshake, every blessing, every journey can be an opportunity for danger. That means the Swiss Guard must be more than soldiers. They must anticipate not only external enemies, but also the Pope's own decisions, his unexpected movements, and his private routines. They become his shadow, predicting where he will be, who he will see, and what risks may arise. This role is more complicated than it seems. To guard a man as powerful as the Pope is not only to shield him from bullets and blades, but also to quietly monitor his safety in ways that blur the line between protection and surveillance. The guard often knows where the Pope is at every hour of the day, even when he believes himself alone. They walk with him during public ceremonies, but they also stand outside his doors at night, listening for sounds of distress, ready to intervene if needed. Their eyes and ears are constant, and their silence makes them invisible. Some historians suggest that this silent watching has an additional purpose. The Pope may be spiritual, but he is also political, and politics always breeds suspicion. By keeping the Pope constantly surrounded by men whose loyalty is sworn directly to him, the Vatican ensures he is never left unguarded, but it also ensures that he is never without witnesses. Every word spoken, every visitor received, every choice made is seen by eyes that report nothing but remember everything. In a sense, the Guard is both protector and mirror, reflecting the Pope's life back at him in silence. There have even been rumours that the Guard's duty sometimes involves quietly guiding the Pope away from his own impulses, shielding him not just from assassins but from mistakes. Their presence is a reminder that he is never entirely alone, and though this may seem heavy, it is perhaps necessary. For a man whose decisions ripple across the world, solitude can be dangerous. The Swiss Guard ensures that solitude never fully exists within Vatican walls. To call them shadow watchers may sound unsettling, but it captures their strange position perfectly. They are both wall and window, both shield and silent witness. They protect the Pope's body, but they also guard the story of his life, watching with eyes that see everything and mouths that speak nothing. In the Vatican, where secrecy is survival, the Swiss Guard do not just stand in the Pope's light, they linger in his shadow, always present, always silent, always watching. On the night of May 4th in the year 1998, silence fell over Vatican City in a way it never had before. Inside the small apartment of the newly appointed commander of the Swiss Guard, Alois Estermann, 3 bodies were discovered. Estermann himself, his wife, Gladys Meza Romero, and a young Swiss Guard named Cedric Tournay. The official statement released by the Vatican was shocking yet strangely simple. Tournay, a 23-year-old corporal, had shot Estermann and his wife before turning the gun on himself. It was labelled a murder-suicide. But almost immediately, doubts began to surface. Estermann had just been appointed commander that very day, after years of service in the Guard. He was known as strict, disciplined, but also controversial. Some insiders whispered that his leadership style had created enemies within the ranks. His wife, a Venezuelan woman deeply devoted to the church, had been by his side for years. Tournay, on the other hand, was young, restless, and reportedly frustrated with his career. Official reports suggested he had been denied a medal for his service and lashed out in anger. But was that enough to explain such a brutal act? As details trickled out, inconsistencies began to appear. Tournay's body was said to have contained high levels of hashish, suggesting drug use. Yet, friends described him as disciplined and not the type to spiral into addiction. Others noted that his suicide note was unusually formal, as if crafted to fit the Vatican's narrative. Then there was the location. The killings took place inside a highly secure area, raising questions about how such violence could unfold in the very heart of the Vatican without intervention. Conspiracy theories quickly grew. Some claimed Tournay had uncovered corruption within the Guard or the Vatican itself and was silenced. Others speculated that Esteban, with his rise to power, had crossed paths with forces he could not control. Still others pointed to Gladys, suggesting she knew too much about secret dealings. The Vatican insisted on the murder-suicide explanation, but their refusal to allow independent investigations only deepened the suspicion. For many, the deaths were not just a tragedy, but a crack in the carefully guarded image of the Swiss Guard. The men sworn to protect the Pope had suddenly turned their weapons inward, and the speed with which the Vatican declared the case closed left more questions than answers. If Tournay was truly the killer, why had tensions within the Guard been allowed to escalate so far? If he was not, then who stood to gain from silencing Esteban on the very day of his promotion? To this day, the mystery remains unresolved. Official records have not silenced the whispers. Some former guards quietly admit they never believed the official version. Others suggest the truth is buried deep in files, locked away in the Vatican archives. What is certain is that the events of May 4th shattered the illusion that the Swiss Guard was untouchable. For a brief and bloody moment, the Vatican's hidden army was exposed, and what the world saw was not unity and discipline, but chaos, suspicion, and death. The deaths of Commander Alois Esteban, his wife Gladys, and young guard Cedric Tournay in 1998 were officially explained as a murder-suicide, but that explanation has never sat comfortably with those who study the Vatican's shadowed history. Almost immediately after the announcement, theories began to spread. If the official story was too neat, too convenient, then perhaps something darker was at play. Some whispered of corruption, others of ancient rivalries, and still others of secret societies moving behind the scenes. One of the most persistent theories points to Masonic involvement. For centuries, the Catholic Church has clashed with Freemasonry, seeing it as a rival power network, one that thrives on secrecy and influence. Some researchers claim Esteban had uncovered connections between Masonic groups and elements within the Vatican. If true, his sudden death on the very day of his promotion could have been a silencing. A message, not only to him but to anyone else who might threaten to reveal what should remain hidden. The fact that Masonic infiltration has long been a fear within the Vatican only fuels this speculation. Another theory suggests that Esteban himself may have been entangled in corruption within the Vatican's inner circles. Over the years, accusations of financial scandals, questionable alliances, and covert deals have surrounded the Holy See. If Esteban knew too much or refused to play along, he could have become a liability. His removal, packaged neatly as a murder-suicide, would erase a problem without ever acknowledging the deeper rot beneath the surface. The Vatican's refusal to allow independent investigations only makes this possibility harder to dismiss. There is also the idea that Cedric Tournay was framed. The young guard, said to have been angry about a denied medal and supposedly under the influence of drugs, may have been the perfect scapegoat. If others carried out the killings, planting evidence to implicate him would have been simple within the tightly controlled walls of the Vatican. His alleged suicide note, described by some as unusually formal and out of character, adds to the suspicion. Was it written by Tournai himself, or by someone else eager to close the case? A darker suggestion goes further, claiming the murders were tied to secrets Esteman's wife, Gladys, might have known. As the spouse of the commander, she would have been privy to conversations, details, and observations that outsiders could never access. Some believe her presence that night was the real reason for the violence, that what she carried in memory or in notes was simply too dangerous to let escape the Vatican walls. No matter which theory is considered, they all point to the same unsettling possibility. The triple death may not have been a crime of passion, but a calculated act of silencing. If that is true, then the question becomes not who pulled the trigger, but who ordered it. The Vatican's veil of secrecy has made sure no definitive answer has ever surfaced. And so the tragedy of May 4th remains suspended between fact and suspicion, a mystery where every official word feels like another layer of smoke hiding something the world was never meant to know. More than 2 decades have passed since the night of May 4th, 1998, when 3 bodies were discovered in the Vatican apartment of Commander Alois Esteman. The official story of a murder-suicide was released within hours, but ever since then, the silence has been almost louder than the explanation. Vatican records related to the case remain sealed, tucked away where no outsider can access them. This silence raises the most haunting question of all. Why, if the case were as simple as described, why not open the files? Why not show the world the evidence that Cedric Tournai, the young guard, really did kill Esteman and his wife before turning the gun on himself? Sealing the records has only fueled suspicion that the truth is not as clean as the Vatican would have people believe. In most countries, tragic crimes are investigated, documented, and eventually made public. But the Vatican is not most countries. It is the smallest state in the world, ruled not by law in the ordinary sense, but by canon, tradition, and secrecy. Some argue the records remain sealed to protect the dignity of the Guard. The Swiss Guard has stood as a symbol of loyalty for over 500 years. Admitting to deeper scandals, internal fractures, or hidden motives might shatter that image. To the Vatican, protecting reputation can be as important as protecting life itself. By keeping the files closed, the Church ensures that the Guard remains untarnished in the eyes of the faithful, even if the truth lies buried beneath layers of silence. Others believe the records are locked away because they contain evidence of corruption or connections too explosive to reveal. Perhaps the documents point to larger networks of power, involving not just the Guard, but the Vatican's political or financial dealings. If Esteman's death was not simply an act of personal rage, but part of something bigger, then opening the files could shake the foundations of trust in an institution already burdened with controversy. Secrecy, in this case, is not just habit, but survival. There is also the possibility that the Vatican fears the damage that speculation could cause. Even a small detail, once released, could be twisted by the public into a weapon of doubt. By withholding everything, they maintain control of the narrative. They allow the official version to stand unchallenged, no matter how many questions remain unanswered. Silence becomes a shield, protecting both the Church and the memory of those who died, though at the cost of truth. For the families involved, the sealed records are a wound that never heals. Tournai's relatives have long protested the official account, insisting he was framed or driven to his fate by pressures far beyond what was revealed. Without access to the files, they may never find peace. And so the mystery lingers. Why do the records remain sealed? Perhaps because the Vatican has more to lose by telling the truth than by holding it back. In the end, the unanswered questions may be more dangerous than the answers themselves. The silence ensures that the night of May 4th will remain a shadow, a story half told, and a reminder that, in the Vatican, secrecy is often the final word. When most people think of the Swiss Guard, they picture them standing outside the Pope's residence, halberds in hand. a human wall of loyalty. But their duty extends far deeper than visible protection. These men are not only guardians of the Pope's life, they are also custodians of the Vatican's most priceless treasures, entrusted with defending vaults, archives, and relics that carry the weight of centuries. Within the Vatican walls lie objects and documents capable of reshaping history, and the Swiss Guard are the silent sentinels, ensuring that none of it ever falls into the wrong hands. The Vatican vaults and the secret archives have long been the subject of fascination. Locked behind massive doors and hidden beneath layers of marble and stone, they contain manuscripts from the earliest days of the Church, letters from emperors, accounts of trials, and documents that could challenge accepted versions of history. Few are permitted inside, and even fewer know exactly what lies within. But one fact is certain: the Swiss Guard patrol those areas, guarding entrances that the public never sees. Their presence is not ceremonial there, it is serious, watchful, and unyielding. Alongside the documents are relics the Church has preserved for centuries: bones of saints, fragments of the true cross, sacred chalices, priceless artworks, and gifts from kings and emperors are all housed within the Vatican. Some are displayed to the faithful, but many remain hidden, locked away where only chosen eyes may see them. For every relic in a glass case, there are countless more concealed in vaults, and the task of ensuring their safety falls on the Guard. These items are not only religious symbols, they are also political and cultural treasures, objects whose value extends beyond faith and into the realm of global heritage. It is easy to forget that thieves, governments, and even rival factions throughout history have desired these treasures. Armies once marched on Rome with the goal of plundering the Church's wealth. Intrigue has always swirled around the Vatican's hidden stores. That is why the Swiss Guard are more than just bodyguards. They are protectors of history itself, defenders of secrets that stretch from ancient times to the modern world. Their vigilance ensures that relics and manuscripts, which could shift narratives of power, remain under the control of the Church. There are even whispers that some of the most mysterious objects ever discovered are hidden in these vaults. Texts banned by the Church, scientific works once labelled heretical, perhaps even artifacts tied to ancient civilizations. Whether true or legend, the belief that such items exist makes the Guard's role even more intriguing. If such treasures are real, then these soldiers stand not only between the Pope and danger, but between humanity and truths the Vatican is not yet willing to share. To be entrusted with such responsibility is no small matter. The Guard's loyalty and silence ensure that what is locked away stays locked away. They are not there simply to salute and pose for cameras. They are the living shield of the Vatican's hidden wealth, the guardians of secrets sealed in stone, and in their watchful presence lies a reminder that sometimes what is most valuable is not what the world can see, but what it never will. Beneath the grand dome of St. Peter's Basilica, far below the marble floors walked by millions of pilgrims, lies a hidden world of tunnels, crypts, and secret passageways. Few ever speak of them, and even fewer are allowed to enter. These shadowed corridors weave under the Vatican like veins, connecting chambers, vaults, and ancient burial sites. They are not marked on tourist maps, nor are they mentioned in official guides. To protect such passages, the Vatican entrusts only a select number of Swiss Guards with the most powerful responsibility imaginable. They are the key holders, men chosen to carry access to doors that most of the world will never know exist. Being a key holder is not simply about turning locks. It is about safeguarding routes that could lead to the Pope's escape in times of crisis. Passages that open into hidden rooms, and doors that conceal relics and records sealed for centuries. These keys are heavy, not just in weight, but in meaning. To hold them is to carry fragments of Vatican history, to command entry to spaces even cardinals cannot enter without permission. The Vatican trusts very few with this task, and those chosen are often among the most loyal and disciplined members of the Guard. Legends surround these passageways. Some are said to date back to Roman times, built as part of ancient necropolises buried beneath the basilica. Others were carved in the Middle Ages as escape routes for popes fleeing sieges or assassins. During times of war and danger, these tunnels became lifelines, allowing the pope to vanish into the labyrinth below while enemies stormed the city above. Today, though wars no longer rage against the Vatican walls, the passages remain sealed, their secrecy guarded by the men with keys. The secrecy of the role means outsiders rarely hear details. Former guards never describe what lies beyond the locked doors, bound by oaths of silence. But whispers leak out. Some say the tunnels lead directly to the Vatican archives, allowing discreet transfers of documents without detection. Others claim they hold sealed chambers filled with relics never revealed to the public, items too controversial or dangerous to be displayed. A few even suggest the passageways connect the Vatican to buildings outside its walls, a secret exit into Rome itself should the Pope ever need to disappear. To the public, the image of a guard standing watch with a halberd feels like a symbol, but to a keyholder, the weight of iron and the echo of locked doors represent a responsibility far greater than ceremony. These chosen guards are trusted not only to protect the Pope, but to preserve the Vatican's ability to move unseen, to hide what must remain hidden, and to shield treasures both physical and spiritual. The world above sees sunlight, marble, and crowds. The world below remains cloaked in silence, accessible only to those whose loyalty is beyond question. The Swiss Guard key holders carry both the trust of the Pope and the secrets of the Church. They are living reminders that beneath the surface of faith and tradition lies another reality, one that survives only because the doors to it remain locked and the keys remain in hands the Vatican has chosen with absolute care. When a young man swears his oath to the Swiss Guard, he does not promise loyalty to Switzerland, the land of his birth. He does not swear allegiance to any flag or constitution. His vow is something far stranger and far more personal. It is loyalty to a single man, the Pope, and through him to the Vatican itself. In that moment, his identity shifts. He is no longer simply Swiss. He becomes part of a state within a state, a soldier whose allegiance rises above national boundaries and answers only to the Holy See. This makes the Guard unlike any other military unit in the world. A soldier in France serves France. A soldier in America serves America. But a soldier in the Swiss Guard serves a man who is both a religious leader and a head of state, someone whose influence stretches across nations, cultures, and centuries. Their loyalty is not tied to a country that may change borders or governments. It is tied to an institution that claims to be eternal. In this sense, the Guard are detached from the ordinary flow of politics and patriotism. They exist outside of nations, yet inside the heart of one of the most powerful entities in history. For some recruits, this transformation is exhilarating. They step into a role that elevates them beyond ordinary soldiers, making them guardians of a figure who commands global respect. But it is also a heavy burden. To swear loyalty above nations is to cut ties with certain freedoms. If the interests of Switzerland and the Vatican were ever to collide, the Guard's oath demands that the Vatican come first. The young men who take the oath are told they must be ready to give their lives, not for their homeland, but for the Pope, a man who may not even speak their native language. This peculiar loyalty creates an environment where the Guard live almost as citizens of a hidden world. They are subject to Swiss law when they return home, but within the Vatican, their allegiance is absolute. They wear uniforms designed centuries ago, they march according to Vatican commands, and they follow rules that make them less like ordinary soldiers and more like members of a sacred order. To them, the Pope is not just a leader. He is the reason for their existence as soldiers, the centre around which their lives revolve. Outsiders often wonder how men can dedicate themselves so completely to a foreign power. Yet for the Guard, the oath is not seen as betrayal to Switzerland, but as fulfillment of something higher. They believe they are defending not just a man, but the heart of their faith, the center of their church, the shepherd of over 1 billion believers. Their loyalty becomes a form of spiritual duty, a connection that transcends borders. In a world where armies serve nations and governments rise and fall, the Swiss Guard remain unique. They are loyal not to shifting politics, but to an institution that claims unbroken continuity from the days of Rome. To stand within Vatican walls is to step outside of nationality and into a role that belongs to history itself. The Guard embody this paradox. They are Swiss by birth, yet in service they belong wholly to the Vatican, loyal above all else to the Pope, a man whose authority crosses the boundaries of nations and reaches into the realm of eternity. When people see the Swiss Guard for the first time, they often stare not at the halberds or the rigid posture, but at the brilliant uniforms, bold red, deep blue, and bright yellow. The colours seem festive, almost theatrical, as though the men are actors in a Renaissance play. Yet behind the beauty of the fabric lies a story much older and far more complex. These colours were not chosen by accident. They are the colours of the Medici family, one of the most powerful dynasties in Italian history, and some believe they carry meanings that reach into the world of secret societies and esoteric orders. The Medici were more than just wealthy bankers. In the 15th and 16th centuries, they became the true power behind much of Italy, funding art, architecture, and even papal elections. Popes from the Medici family ruled the church, and their influence stretched across Europe. By dressing the Swiss Guard in the Medici colours, the Vatican was not simply honouring a family, but embedding a reminder of where papal power once drew its strength: red for blood and sacrifice, blue for loyalty and the heavens, yellow for wealth, illumination, and the light of power. Every time a guard takes his place, he is wrapped in a history tied not only to the Pope, but to the legacy of a family that shaped the destiny of Rome. But there are whispers that the symbolism goes even deeper. Some suggest that the choice of colours connects the Guard to older traditions, perhaps even to secret orders that existed alongside the church. Red, blue, and yellow are primary colours, the base of all others, often linked to ancient alchemical traditions. Red for transformation through fire, blue for the spirit and the divine, yellow for enlightenment and hidden knowledge. Could it be that the Guard's uniform is more than Renaissance fashion? That it is a coded statement about guardianship, not only of the Pope, but of mysteries stretching back through time? Critics dismiss such ideas as fantasy, pointing to historical records that tie the design only to the Renaissance and the Medici influence. Yet the persistence of these theories suggests that the colours hold a strange power of their own. Symbols matter, especially in the Vatican, where every statue, every painting, and every garment carries layers of meaning. For an institution that has thrived on blending faith with secrecy, it would be naive to think the choice of colours was only aesthetic. Even today, the colours strike something deeper in the imagination of those who see them. They make the Guard stand out in the sea of black robes and white marble, turning them into living emblems of both tradition and mystery. Tourists snap photos without realizing they are capturing a tapestry of power. Believers bow their heads, reminded of loyalty and sacrifice woven into every thread. And those who look deeper wonder if behind the bright fabric lies an unspoken code, a reminder that in the Vatican, even colours can serve as masks for hidden truths. The uniform of the Swiss Guard is not just clothing. It is history stitched in silk and wool, a living flag of both papal power and the shadows behind it. Red, blue, and yellow. To most, just colours. To the Vatican, perhaps something far greater, a reminder that even appearances can hold secrets meant only for those who know how to see. The Swiss Guard present themselves as soldiers, disciplined and loyal, sworn to defend the Pope with their lives. Yet, when one looks closely at their traditions, their oaths, and their rituals, the lines between military unit and ritual order begin to blur. Are they simply guards in colourful uniforms, or do they carry on a deeper tradition that mirrors the great secret orders of history, from the Knights Templar to the Freemasons? The similarities are hard to ignore. The oath ceremony itself feels less like a standard military vow and more like an initiation. On April 6th of each year, new recruits stand in the Vatican's courtyard, raise their right hands, and swear absolute loyalty to the Pope. The moment is dramatic, filled with ritualistic words, gestures, and symbols. The vow is not to a nation or a constitution, but to a single man, much like the way knights once swore fealty to a Grand Master of a holy order. Observers have long pointed out that the language and formality echo the vows taken by medieval warrior monks, suggesting a direct link between past and present traditions of sacred brotherhoods. The Knights Templar, disbanded in the 14th century, were once the warrior arm of the Church, defending pilgrims and guarding secrets that some believe remain hidden to this day. They lived by codes, swore vows of secrecy, and became symbols of loyalty and mystery. The Swiss Guard, while born in a different era, carry many of those same qualities. They live within walls, cut off from the outside world. They are bound by silence about certain duties, and their lives are shaped by loyalty to a higher cause that goes beyond ordinary service. Some historians and conspiracy theorists alike suggest that the Guard may even function as a symbolic continuation of the Templar tradition. While not publicly acknowledged, the Vatican has long been accused of preserving fragments of Templar knowledge, perhaps even absorbing their rituals into its own institutions. The bright colours of the Guard, their secretive vetting process, and their role as protectors of both the Pope and hidden treasures all mirror the legendary duties once assigned to the Templars. The comparisons do not end there. Freemasonry, another organisation steeped in secrecy and ritual, also draws on Templar imagery and traditions. Some observers have noted striking parallels between Masonic rites and the Guard's ceremonies of oath, loyalty, and service. While the Vatican officially condemns Freemasonry, it is curious that the Guard exhibits structures that reflect some of the same practices. Initiation, secrecy, symbolism, and loyalty above all else are threads that weave these groups together, even if the Vatican would deny any connection. Whether by accident of history or deliberate design, the Swiss Guard embody far more than a military role. Their presence feels like a living ritual, a daily performance of loyalty that binds them not only to the Pope, but to a legacy of sacred orders stretching back through centuries. The question remains whether they are merely soldiers in costume, or if they represent the Vatican's hidden continuation of ancient brotherhoods. Perhaps the truth is somewhere in between. They are both guard and ritual order, protectors in flesh and symbols in spirit, standing as a bridge between the visible church and its hidden traditions. Every year, on the 6th of May, the Swiss Guard gather in a courtyard inside the Vatican. Before the Pope, before church officials, and before the world's cameras, new recruits raise their hands and swear an oath of loyalty that binds them for life. The words spoken are solemn and precise, promising to defend the Pope even unto death. To the public, the ceremony looks complete, a powerful vow made visible, but many have long suspected that what is seen is not the whole story. Whispers circulate that another oath exists, one hidden from view, one containing clauses so absolute that only commanders and the highest Vatican officials ever know their full weight. This idea of a hidden oath is fueled by the extraordinary secrecy that surrounds the Guard. Former members are known to keep silent about certain duties, refusing to answer even the simplest questions. If their public oath was all there was, why would silence be so strictly enforced after service ends? Some suggest that upon joining, guards are required to swear a second private vow, one that is not performed in the courtyard but behind closed doors. This oath, it is said, contains unspeakable clauses, commands that tie them not only to the Pope's protection but also to the safeguarding of the Vatican's secrets. What might such clauses include? Speculation ranges from promises to conceal knowledge of the Vatican's hidden archives to vows of silence about the Pope's private life. Others claim it could extend further, demanding unquestioned obedience in missions never revealed to the public, missions that may blur the line between defense and shadow operations. The idea that a soldier might be bound to carry out acts beyond public knowledge has led to comparisons with secret orders throughout history, where loyalty meant more than life itself. Skeptics argue that no such hidden oath exists, that the guard's silence is simply tradition, a matter of discipline and respect. Yet the Vatican's history of secrecy makes the possibility difficult to dismiss entirely. The Church has always relied on ritual, on layers of meaning, on things said aloud and things left unspoken. To imagine that the Guard, the Pope's most loyal defenders, would not be drawn into such a structure feels almost naive. If anywhere in the modern world could sustain such a hidden tradition, it would be within the walls of the Vatican. The mystery of the hidden oath has never been proven, but its shadow adds to the aura of the Guard. When they stand in their brilliant uniforms, silent and watchful, people cannot help but wonder what truths they carry within. They are not ordinary soldiers, and their loyalty seems to reach into depths that outsiders cannot comprehend. Whether the hidden oath is real or imagined, the belief in it speaks volumes about the Vatican's reputation for secrecy. Some truths are spoken under the sun, others are bound by silence in the dark. The Swiss Guard may be keepers of both, their lives shaped by promises the world may never hear. To the millions of tourists who pour into St. Peter's Square every year, the Swiss Guard appear almost like living statues. They smile politely when asked for photos. They stand rigid at their posts, and their brightly coloured uniforms make them seem more like part of the scenery than an active military unit. For many visitors, they are a highlight of the Vatican tour, as famous for their costumes as the Sistine Chapel ceiling. But behind those ceremonial smiles lies a reality far more serious. The Swiss Guard are not simply ornamental. They are trained and prepared as a counter-assassination force, a hidden line of defense against threats that most people never notice. Every guard undergoes intense training before ever donning the Renaissance uniform. Beneath the colourful fabric, they are soldiers equipped with modern skills in firearms, hand-to-hand combat, and counter-terrorism tactics. What the public sees is the show, the ceremonial face of the Guard. What the Guard themselves live is a constant state of alertness, eyes scanning crowds for the slightest sign of danger. A smiling guard standing at a post may look harmless, but his mind is running through protocols, escape routes, and the subtle body language of those who pass by. The need for such vigilance is not a matter of imagination. History has shown that the Pope is not untouchable. In May of 1981, Pope John Paul II was shot in the middle of St. Dife. Peter's Square, wounded by an assassin's bullet despite being surrounded by security. That moment changed everything. From then on, the Guard were tasked with more than ceremonial duties. They became part of a living shield, trained to neutralize threats before they could ever reach the Pope. Their smiles conceal the readiness of men who know that, in an instant, a celebration could turn into chaos. While tourists see halberds, the medieval-looking weapons carried by guards at the gates, they rarely see the modern firearms kept close at hand. Inside the Vatican, behind doors and under uniforms, the Guard have access to weapons designed for modern defense. Snipers, plainclothes security, and hidden surveillance all work together with the Swiss Guard to create a web of protection. Their role is both visible and invisible, a performance of tradition masking a network of vigilance. The contrast between the outward image and the inward mission is deliberate. The Vatican wants the world to see history, tradition, and continuity, not an armed fortress bristling with modern weapons. The Guard are the perfect compromise, blending the beauty of Renaissance pageantry with the steel of 21st century security. To the public, they are approachable, smiling, and photo-worthy. To those who would threaten the Pope, they are the last barrier, trained to act without hesitation. Behind every ceremonial salute is a soldier's awareness. Behind every smile is the unspoken promise that if danger arises, those bright uniforms will not stand still. They will move, strike, and defend. The Swiss Guard's true strength lies not in the show, but in the silence behind it. A silence that waits for the moment it may be called into action. The Swiss Guard may look like relics of the Renaissance, but their training is anything but old-fashioned. Every recruit begins with a background in the Swiss military, one of the most respected defense systems in Europe, where discipline and precision are drilled into every soldier. But when a young man steps through the gates of the Vatican, his preparation does not stop there. Instead, it deepens, expanding into areas of counter-terrorism, intelligence gathering, and even specialized urban warfare. This has led to whispers that the Guard are not simply trained in isolation, but may have received help from some of the most formidable intelligence agencies in the world, including the CIA of the United States and Mossad of Israel. Officially, the Vatican denies such coordination, insisting the Guard are prepared only through their own resources and occasional cooperation with the Italian authorities. Yet rumours persist, fueled by the fact that the Pope is one of the most high-profile targets on Earth, a figure whose protection demands expertise far beyond ceremonial guard duty. In a world where assassination attempts and terrorist threats are constant realities, it would hardly be surprising if the Vatican quietly reached out to allies with deeper experience. The CIA has decades of experience in covert operations, while Mossad is known for its efficiency in counter-terrorism. If any two agencies could sharpen the Guard's edge, it would be them. Some former insiders claim that select Guards have indeed travelled abroad for special training, quietly integrated into programs that focus on surveillance, intelligence analysis, and high-level protective tactics. The Vatican, after all, cannot risk leaving the Pope's life in the hands of outdated methods. Learning from those who operate at the very top of global security would be both logical and necessary. Whether the training occurs formally or through back-channel cooperation is unknown, but the skill level of the Guard suggests that something more than Swiss drills lies behind their abilities. The connection with Mossad is particularly interesting. Both Israel and the Vatican hold ancient religious significance and share a history marked by both conflict and dialogue. Cooperation between their protective forces would remain deeply hidden, but the possibility of shared intelligence and techniques has been suggested more than once. If true, it would mean the Swiss Guard are not merely the Pope's soldiers, but a unit strengthened by the wisdom of agencies that operate in some of the most dangerous arenas of the modern world. Tourists see halberds and bright uniforms, but behind the walls, Guards train with modern rifles, practice rapid evacuation procedures, and rehearse responses to chemical or biological threats. They learn how to blend into crowds, to spot threats before they take shape, and to protect the Pope under scenarios that range from drone attacks to organised assaults. None of this comes from pageantry. It comes from serious training, the kind that only a handful of forces in the world can provide. The elite training of the Swiss Guard is one of the Vatican's most closely guarded secrets. Whether or not the CIA or Mossad play a role, what is clear is that the Guards stand ready as more than ceremonial soldiers. They are a small but formidable shield, polished in silence, their skills sharpened in ways the world may never fully know. The world sees the Swiss Guard as protectors of the Pope, standing watch at gates and walking beside him during public appearances. Yet, their role goes deeper than safeguarding one man. They are also protectors of something less visible, but perhaps even more valuable. The Swiss Guard are guardians of secrets, entrusted not only with defending the physical walls of the Vatican, but with making sure what lies inside those walls never slips beyond them. The Vatican is a place built on mystery. Beneath its marble halls are archives said to stretch for miles, filled with documents and relics that span centuries. Letters from emperors, maps of forgotten worlds, forbidden texts, and correspondence with kings are said to lie in its vaults. Some believe there are records of events that could reshape history if revealed. The guard's duty is not just to keep intruders out, but to ensure that the knowledge stored within remains exactly where it is. A guard at a locked door is not simply protecting a passage. He is a barrier between the world and truths the Vatican has chosen to keep hidden. The importance of this role becomes clear when considering what could happen if such secrets were ever leaked. A single document suggesting that history was rewritten, or a relic challenging accepted beliefs, could send shockwaves through faith communities worldwide. The Vatican knows this, and so the Guard are placed as sentinels not only of the Pope's life, but of the Church's control over knowledge. They are soldiers of silence as much as soldiers of steel. There are stories of guards stationed at rooms no tourist ever enters, guarding doors without labels, doors that lead to chambers buried beneath centuries of construction. Former members have hinted that their duties sometimes included escorting mysterious crates, monitoring sealed areas, or enforcing access restrictions even on high-ranking clergy. When asked what these assignments involved, they fall silent. That silence itself is telling. If their role were purely ceremonial, there would be nothing to hide. Some whisper that the Swiss Guard's loyalty oath binds them not only to protect the Pope from harm, but also to prevent the escape of secrets that could weaken the Vatican's power. This means that in extreme cases, their mission may include silencing threats from within, ensuring that information does not leave the walls in the hands of those not authorized to carry it. It paints the Guard not just as defenders, but as gatekeepers of the unknown. Outwardly, they stand smiling in their bright uniforms, part of the Vatican's grand display of tradition. Inwardly, they embody a darker task, one that requires vigilance over things that cannot be spoken of. Their presence assures the Vatican that what is hidden will stay hidden, that what belongs to the Church will not slip into the world. In this way, the Swiss Guard guard more than a man. They guard the very boundaries of secrecy itself, holding back tides of truth that may never be allowed to surface. The Swiss Guard are sworn to lay down their lives for the Pope, their loyalty celebrated as absolute and unshakable. Yet, whispers have lingered through history that not every guard has remained faithful, that in rare and shadowed moments, betrayal has taken root within the very ranks meant to protect the Holy Father. The idea that the Pope's closest defenders could also become his greatest threat has given rise to stories of betrayal, conspiracy, and even assassination attempts from within. Most of these stories exist as rumours, fragments that historians struggle to verify, but their persistence reveals something troubling. In the 16th and 17th centuries, when political intrigue and papal corruption were at their height, it was said that factions within the Vatican sometimes sought to use the Guard for their own purposes. A soldier stationed so close to the Pope held incredible access, and in times of bitter power struggles, that access became tempting. There are tales of guards who were accused of passing information to enemies of the Church, or worse, of plotting to remove the Pope himself when loyalties were divided. The question has always been, how much truth lies within these stories? Official Vatican records are silent, and silence is often a sign that something uncomfortable hides beneath. In the 19th century, a scandal broke when a guard was accused of secretly working with outside revolutionaries during a period of unrest in Italy. While he was quickly removed and the matter was hushed, it left many wondering how deep the cracks of loyalty could run when politics and ideology clashed with the Church's authority. The most chilling whispers, however, suggest that in modern times there have been guards who contemplated direct harm to the Pope. The tragedy of Commander Alois Estermann's death in 1998 stirred these fears once again, as some questioned whether internal conflict within the Guard could have turned deadly. Was it an isolated murder-suicide, or was it evidence of deeper tensions, perhaps even of betrayal from within? The truth was never made clear, and the Vatican's tight grip on information only fuels suspicion. To imagine betrayal within the Guard is to imagine a paradox. These men are trained to see themselves as the Pope's shield, yet history shows that proximity can be both protection and danger. In the dark corners of the Vatican, where ambition, secrecy, and human weakness collide, even the most sacred vows can be tested. The idea that one or more guards may have once turned against their master reminds us that no institution, however holy, is free from the shadows of doubt. Whether these rumors are history or myth, their power lies in the reminder that absolute loyalty is an ideal, not always a reality. The Guard remain symbols of devotion, but behind the marble walls, whispers of betrayal haunt their legacy. The very men sworn to protect the Pope may, in the darkest moments, have stood as his greatest risk. And the Vatican, ever skilled at secrecy, ensures the world may never know the full truth. History is written not only by what is remembered, but by what is erased. Within the Vatican, where secrecy is a tradition as old as its stones, the story of the Swiss Guard has always been presented as one of unwavering loyalty and devotion. Yet, there are hints that another layer exists, one where disloyalty and betrayal are quietly removed from the record. Files disappear, names vanish, and the image of perfection is preserved. This is the world of suppressed histories, where the stories of guards who may have failed in their duty are buried so deep that only whispers remain. The Vatican is a master of controlling narrative. For centuries, it has maintained archives that hold millions of documents, some so sensitive that only a handful of people are allowed to view them. Among those documents are said to be records of the Swiss Guard, official rosters, service notes, disciplinary files, all the material that would exist for any military unit. Yet, unlike other armies, the Swiss Guard's files are rarely open to researchers. What has been seen seems curated, as if the less flattering chapters of their story have been edited out. There are scattered references from outsiders who claim to have glimpsed documents about guards dismissed for disobedience or suspected disloyalty. These files, however, are said to vanish without trace, leaving only rumors that they ever existed. In some cases, families of former guards have spoken of sons or brothers who returned home suddenly, their service cut short, yet no reason was ever given. Their names slip quietly out of official memory, as if their very presence within the Vatican was erased. Why would such suppression occur? The answer may be as simple as image. The Swiss Guard are not just soldiers, they are symbols of absolute loyalty to the Pope. To admit that disloyalty has ever existed within their ranks would tarnish the image the Vatican presents to the world. A perfect guard force, unwavering in devotion, projects stability and divine protection. Any record of betrayal would shatter that illusion. In an institution that thrives on ritual and perception, such a risk cannot be allowed. But some suggest there may be deeper reasons. If a guard were caught betraying secrets, colluding with outsiders, or plotting against the Pope, his very existence would threaten the Vatican's control. Suppressing the history of such men would be not only about protecting image, but also about preventing dangerous knowledge from slipping into public hands. Erased files are safer than scandal. Forgotten names pose no risk. Of course, the Vatican will never confirm this. To them, the Guard remains spotless, a living legend of loyalty. Yet the silence around these missing records speaks louder than official words. What stories were lost when files disappeared? What truths were buried when disloyalty was erased? The world may never know, but the very possibility casts a shadow over the bright uniforms and polished image. The Swiss Guard may appear flawless, but beneath the surface lies a history carefully pruned, with roots stretching into the darkness of secrets never meant to be told. When soldiers retire from most armies, they often tell stories. Veterans share memories of battles, friendships, and even mistakes. Yet when it comes to the Swiss Guard, silence follows them home. Very few ever speak publicly about what they saw or did behind the walls of the Vatican. Interviews are rare, and when they do appear, the words are carefully measured, offering only surface details about uniforms, ceremonies, or the honor of serving the Pope. The deeper truths of their service remain locked away, unspoken, even decades later. This silence raises the question, why? Part of the answer lies in discipline. From the moment they enter the guard, recruits are trained not just in weapons, but in secrecy. They are told that their duties are sacred, their loyalty absolute, and that discretion is part of their identity. This discipline does not end when the uniform is set aside. The Vatican expects its guards to carry silence with them for life, as much a part of their oath as the vow of loyalty to the Pope. Breaking it would be seen as betrayal, not only of the Church but of their brothers who continue to serve. But silence may not always be voluntary. There are suggestions that retiring guards sign agreements, binding them legally to confidentiality. Some even hint at hidden clauses in their vows, promising that certain secrets can never be revealed under any circumstances. Whether these are enforced by law, faith, or fear is unclear, but the effect is the same. Former guards rarely risk speaking out, and those who do usually keep their words vague, hinting without ever exposing. There is also the weight of what they might know. Inside the Vatican, guards are witnesses to events the world never sees. They guard doors that lead to forbidden archives, escort figures who prefer to remain in the shadows, and stand present during private papal moments. If they were to speak freely, they might reveal things that could shake the Church's carefully maintained image. Some may carry memories too dangerous to share, memories that could never be spoken without consequence. Another layer of silence comes from loyalty itself. Many guards come from deeply Catholic backgrounds, raised in families where service to the Church is considered an honor. For them, silence is not simply enforced, it is chosen. Out of respect for their vows, out of devotion to their faith, or out of pride in protecting something greater than themselves, they refuse to speak. Silence becomes their final act of loyalty, a continuation of their service even after the uniform is gone. The result is a mystery that feeds speculation. The absence of voices only fuels questions about what the guards are hiding. Are they silent because there is nothing to tell, or because what they know is too great to be revealed? The truth may lie somewhere in between. What is certain is that the silence of retired guards keeps the mystique alive. Their refusal to speak transforms them into shadows, carrying secrets the world may never hear, leaving only questions that echo louder with every quiet passing year. The Swiss Guard are known as soldiers, but some believe their duties stretch into realms far beyond physical defense. Among the most mysterious of these whispered responsibilities is their role as custodians of prophecy. For centuries, the Vatican has been tied to predictions of the future, from ancient saints who foresaw turmoil to modern visions like the secrets of Fatima. The Guard, always present in the background, are said to be the silent watchers of these prophecies, ensuring they remain hidden, protected, and controlled. One of the most famous prophecies is the third secret of Fatima. In 1917, 3 shepherd children in Portugal reported visions of the Virgin Mary, who gave them messages about the future. 2 of the secrets were revealed early, but the third was locked away in the Vatican. For decades, popes kept it sealed, fueling endless speculation. Some believed it predicted the end of the world. Others thought it warned of corruption within the Church itself. When the Vatican finally released what it claimed was the full text in the year 2000, many doubted it was the real secret. The version shown spoke of a bishop in white falling, a vision many linked to the assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II. But critics argued that this was too simple, too incomplete. They believed that the true prophecy was darker, and that the Vatican had chosen to keep it hidden. Here, the Swiss Guard come into focus. For who else but them could physically protect such documents, guarding the locked rooms where they are kept, ensuring that no eyes but those chosen by the Pope ever see them? Their role as custodians of prophecy may not be written in any official record, but their presence in the Vatican's most secretive spaces makes it believable. Whether the prophecy of Fatima or other hidden texts predicting wars, disasters, or betrayals, the guards stand as the barrier between the written future and the public. Beyond Fatima, the Vatican is said to hold other prophecies too. There are whispers of letters from saints who foresaw upheavals in the papacy, manuscripts from mystics predicting strange celestial events, even warnings of great wars that would shape human history. If these documents exist, they would be treasures more explosive than gold, capable of shaking faith or altering politics if revealed. And once again, the ones tasked with ensuring their silence would be the Swiss Guard. What makes this role fascinating is its blending of the spiritual with the military. A soldier is trained to defend against bullets and blades, but the Guard may also be defending words, visions, and secrets that hold the power to unsettle nations. They are both warriors and custodians, protectors not only of the Pope's body, but of the Church's vision of destiny. The idea that prophecy requires protection may sound like legend, yet in the Vatican, where faith and secrecy walk hand in hand, it feels entirely possible. The Swiss Guard, always in the background, may not just be witnesses to history. They may also be standing guard over the future, ensuring that what is foretold is never revealed until the Church decides the world is ready. Deep beneath the Vatican lies one of the most mysterious collections in the world, the Apostolic Archives, a place said to hold centuries of forbidden manuscripts, secret correspondence, and hidden knowledge. While scholars debate what truly rests inside, one thing is certain: access is tightly controlled. Very few are ever allowed to enter, and even fewer are permitted to see the most sensitive materials. At the edge of this secrecy, standing quietly yet firmly, are the Swiss Guard. Though their presence is rarely discussed openly, many believe they act as the true gatekeepers of the archives, ensuring that only those with the highest approval cross into the shadows of those vaulted halls. The archives are not just old records of popes and councils. They are said to contain letters from emperors, reports of ancient rituals, lost gospels, and even scientific works that were locked away because they challenged accepted doctrine. To step into such a place is not merely to study history, it is to encounter knowledge that could unsettle the foundations of faith. That is why the Vatican guards it so closely, and why the Swiss Guard, bound by oaths of silence and absolute loyalty, are trusted to keep watch. Stories circulate of guards stationed outside heavy doors deep in the Vatican, doors that lead into restricted areas of the archives. Their role is not to read or question what lies within, but to ensure that no one unauthorized passes through. In this way, they become more than soldiers. They are living keys, their vigilance deciding who may approach the mysteries and who must be turned away. Scholars may petition for access, but even if the Church grants approval, the last barrier is often a silent guard standing firm. There are also tales of guards accompanying certain items when they are moved, sometimes late at night, through hidden corridors. Crates are carried with no explanation, sealed and shadowed, while the guards ensure they are delivered to places few will ever see. What those crates contain remains unknown. Some imagine relics of saints, others fragments of manuscripts too controversial to release. Whatever the truth, the Guard's role as custodians of secrecy is clear. The connection between the Guard and the archives ties into the Vatican's long tradition of blending power with mystery. While the scholars see history and the faithful see sacred tradition, the Swiss Guard see only duty. Their task is not to understand, but to protect. To them, a locked door is not a symbol of knowledge withheld. It is a point of defense, a place where loyalty is tested daily. To the outside world, the archives are a legend, a treasure house of secrets waiting to be uncovered. But to the Guard, they are something more tangible, something they guard not with curiosity, but with silence. They are the unseen barrier between mankind and knowledge that could change everything. In this way, the Swiss Guard do not just watch over the Pope. They watch over the boundaries of what the world is allowed to know, their presence reminding us that some doors are never meant to be opened. The Swiss Guard are officially confined to the Vatican, sworn to defend the Pope within the tiny walls of the world's smallest state. Yet rumours have long suggested that their reach is not so limited, that at times in history they have stepped quietly beyond Rome to serve in secret. These whispers speak of the Pope's hidden army playing roles in modern wars, never officially acknowledged, always denied, but impossible to fully dismiss. If true, it would mean the Guard are not only protectors, but also agents of Vatican power, deployed in ways the world was never meant to see. The idea may sound unbelievable at first. The Guard are few in number, just over 100 men, hardly a force that could shape the tides of global conflict. But wars are not only fought on battlefields, they are also fought in shadows, in missions of intelligence, protection, and influence. In those places, a handful of highly trained soldiers can matter more than an army. Some accounts claim that during the Second World War, certain guards were quietly sent beyond Vatican walls, tasked with protecting clergy, escorting sensitive documents, or securing treasures of the Church from Nazi theft. The Vatican remained neutral, but neutrality did not mean inaction. Behind the public mask, the Guard may have moved as invisible hands of preservation. Other stories link them to the Cold War. With the Church standing as a powerful voice against communism, it is said the Swiss Guard were sometimes deployed to watch, to gather intelligence, and to support networks that resisted Soviet influence. While the CIA and other agencies played the visible roles, the Vatican may have used its own soldiers in ways that left no official trace. No uniform, no flag, only quiet men carrying out tasks for the Pope, their presence forgotten before it could be proven. More recently, there are unconfirmed claims that guards were sent to regions of conflict where Christians faced persecution. Though never admitted, it is suggested they may have worked alongside humanitarian missions, shielding priests and bishops in danger zones, ensuring that certain figures reached safety. These are not the roles of ceremonial guards. They are the roles of a secretive, protective force, one that can appear where needed and vanish without record. Of course, the Vatican denies such stories, insisting that the Swiss Guard remains strictly within its borders. But secrecy has always been the Vatican's strongest defense. Denial does not prove absence. If anything, it fuels the belief that behind the bright colours and smiling faces lies a hidden network of men who can be summoned when the Church requires them. The notion of the Pope's hidden army stretches the imagination, yet history is full of shadows where truth and rumour blur. Perhaps the Guard have always been more than they appear. Perhaps their role has never been limited to St. Peter's Square. If the stories are true, then the Swiss Guard are not only protectors of the Pope, they are agents of the Vatican's will, moving silently through history's wars, a hidden army whose battles are never written in official record. When the world sees the Swiss Guard, it imagines loyal protectors standing beside the Pope, colourful symbols of safety and devotion. But what if their role is not so simple? What if their duty goes beyond shielding a single man and stretches into something far greater, something that touches the very heart of hidden history itself? This question lingers in the shadows of the Vatican, raising doubts about whether the guards are only guardians of life or also guardians of secrets that could rewrite what we know about the past. On the surface, their task seems clear. They watch over the Pope, escort him through crowds, and guard the gates of the Vatican. Yet their presence in places like the Apostolic Archives, their role in escorting sealed crates, and their silence after service suggest responsibilities that extend far beyond visible protection. If they were simply ceremonial soldiers, why would they be bound to such strict secrecy? Why would they be involved in guarding doors that lead not to the Pope's chambers, but to the treasures and documents locked beneath centuries of stone? This leads to the unsettling possibility that their true mission is control. By ensuring that certain knowledge remains hidden, they do not merely defend the Pope as a person, they defend the Vatican as an institution. In this way, they become custodians not of life, but of power, guarding truths that the Church has chosen not to release. If this is the case, then their bright uniforms act as a mask, hiding their darker responsibility. They are not just protecting a figurehead, they are controlling access to history itself. Think about it. A prophecy like the Third Secret of Fatima, a manuscript that questions accepted scripture, or evidence of church corruption in past centuries, could all be enough to shift the faith of millions. If such materials exist in the Vatican, someone must ensure they never reach the outside world without careful approval. Who better than a loyal, secretive military bound by oaths of silence? The Swiss Guard may stand at the intersection of faith and control, tasked not just with defending the Pope from assassins, but with defending the Church from revelation. Of course, the Vatican presents them as symbols of loyalty, and for many, that is all they are. But the silence of retired guards, the disappearance of records, and the strict limitations on their access to the outside world hint at deeper layers. They may be both shield and cage, both protectors and jailers, depending on what the moment demands. So, are they protecting or controlling? The truth may be that they do both. They protect the Pope because his survival symbolizes the continuity of the Church. But they also control knowledge because unchecked truth could shake that same continuity to its core. The Swiss Guard stand at the threshold of these two duties, a living paradox. They smile for the tourists, but behind their silence they hold keys not only to the Pope's safety, but to the history humanity may never be allowed to see. The Swiss Guard are unlike any other military force in the world. They do not serve a nation, nor do they pledge loyalty to a flag or constitution. Their allegiance is to one man and one throne, and that makes them both unique and unsettling. They exist in silence, outside the boundaries of accountability that define modern armies. No parliament debates their actions, no public records reveal their duties, and no citizens vote on their role. They are the army of silence, a force whose very existence blurs the line between symbol and shadow. This silence begins with their recruitment. Young men from Switzerland enter the Vatican, leaving behind their national ties in exchange for a vow to the Pope. From that moment, their identity as soldiers of a country is stripped away. They do not fight for borders or people. They fight, if needed, for a throne that claims divine authority. This transforms them into something beyond a regular army, more like a private guard that exists outside the normal rules of war and politics. It also makes them accountable to no one but the Pope himself. In times of peace, this may seem harmless. Tourists see the guards in their colourful uniforms, standing quietly at gates, and think of them as ceremonial. But behind this pageantry is a deeper reality. They are trained, disciplined, and sworn to protect, and in that silence they hold power. If the Pope commands them to act, who would know? Who could question it? The Vatican is its own sovereign state, and within its walls the Guard operate beyond the reach of outside law. Their actions, whether mundane or extraordinary, remain shielded from the world. This lack of accountability fuels speculation about hidden roles. Are they guarding only the Pope, or are they also enforcing the Vatican's silence on matters of history, prophecy, and power? Without a chain of oversight, it is impossible to know. The army of silence answers to no one but the throne, and that makes their reach difficult to measure. They could be carrying out missions far from Rome, or ensuring that secrets never escape, and the world would remain none the wiser. Their silence also protects their image. Few guards ever speak after service, and those who do rarely go beyond surface-level stories. This absence of testimony keeps the Guard shrouded in mystery, their loyalty appearing absolute and their purpose unquestionable. But silence can be as telling as speech. The fact that so little escapes suggests that their obedience runs deeper than duty, it is identity itself. The Swiss Guard stand as both a symbol of loyalty and a reminder of how power thrives on secrecy. They are not accountable to citizens, governments, or history. They are accountable to one man sitting on one throne, and to him alone. This makes them powerful in ways that numbers cannot measure. They are small in size, yet immense in mystery. They are the army of silence, an enduring paradox of devotion, secrecy, and control. Their true legacy hidden in the shadows where accountability never reaches. For centuries, the Swiss Guard have been seen as the Pope's protectors, brightly dressed soldiers who stand watch over the smallest country in the world. But when you peel back the layers of history, secrecy, and silence, a larger and far more unsettling picture begins to form. What if their mission is not only to shield one man from harm, but to guard something far greater, something that touches the destiny of all humanity? This is the final mystery, the possibility that the Swiss Guard's true purpose is to stand between mankind and truths the Vatican believes must never be revealed. Consider how carefully they are chosen. Each man must meet strict requirements, be bound by lifelong loyalty, and accept an oath of silence that stretches even beyond their years of service. Why such intensity for a small protective unit? Perhaps because their duties go beyond guarding doors and escorting the Pope through crowds. They may also guard secrets that, if known, could shake faith, topple traditions, and rewrite history itself. The Vatican has always been a master of preserving not just spiritual authority, but also control over knowledge. Hidden archives, locked prophecies, and forbidden manuscripts hint at a truth too vast to be exposed. If such things exist, the Swiss Guard may be the last line of defense, ensuring they never reach the outside world. The idea is not new. Legends have long claimed that the Vatican holds knowledge of ancient civilizations, suppressed gospels, and even prophecies about the end of the world. Others whisper of artifacts hidden deep within its vaults, relics that could reveal humanity's forgotten origins or its future fate. If any of this is true, then it is not only the Pope who must be shielded, but the entire structure of belief that surrounds him. Protecting that would require a force unlike any other, one that answers to no nation, no law, and no authority but the throne of Rome. This is where the Guard becomes something more than soldiers. They become keepers of humanity's boundaries, deciding not through debate but through silence what the world can and cannot know. Their weapons may defend against visible threats, but their silence defends against something greater, the spread of knowledge deemed too dangerous. In this sense, they may not just protect the Pope's life. They may protect the Church's vision of human destiny, ensuring that revelations, which could undo centuries of faith, remain sealed away forever. The most haunting thought is that the guards themselves may not even know the full extent of what they protect. They may stand watch over doors without understanding what lies behind them, their loyalty blinding them to the magnitude of their duty. In the end, they become both guardians and prisoners of the same mystery. So perhaps the final mystery of the Swiss Guard is not their bright uniforms, their training, or even their loyalty. It is the possibility that they are guarding truths meant for no eyes but those chosen by the Vatican. Truths that, if ever released, could change humanity forever. And in that silence, the Guard remind us that the greatest secrets are not lost, they are kept